Hey everybody, it's Charles from HumbleMechanic.com. Today taking your questions on Windows not working, getting in an accident, 2018 Tiguan issues, and more. This is episode 232 of the Humble Mechanic Podcast. Remember, if you want to get a question on a show like this, email me, charles@HumbleMechanic.com, and put question for Charles in the subject. Be sure to ask that question right at the top, give me some space, then give me the details of that question. And if you don't see your question on a show like this, be sure to check out the quick videos playlist on YouTube where I do one question per video. Also, if you'd rather listen to the show, there's audio-only versions of most of these episodes on iTunes, Google, and of course at HumbleMechanic.com. All right, let's talk about the sponsor of the day, which is CRP Automotive. CRP deals in a ton of OE maintenance and repair parts, timing belt kits, suspension components, and even fluids. In fact, they make the factory DSG fluid for Volkswagen and Audi. So check them out at crpautomotive.com. And finally, if you guys want exclusive content from me, as well as discounts to places like Black Forest, Eastwood, MT Knives, Sonic Tools, Prime Shades, MyCanic, Kerma TDI, and a whole bunch more, check out that Crew membership program. Awesome way to help support the show, but more importantly, get you guys some really great content and some awesome discounts you're not gonna find anywhere else. As always, links down in the description. All right, that's done. Let's wrap it up. Let's get into the questions. First one up is from Ian. I have an 06 Jetta and my front windows don't roll down anymore, but the rear ones still work. When I click the buttons, you can hear clicking from inside the doors. The car senses that the doors are open and closed, and when I open the doors all the way, it does the same thing. I can still lock and unlock the car from the buttons on the doors. Also, when I put the key in the door to roll the windows down, only the rear ones roll down. Okay, Ian, you covered a lot of what I would have done in like the first 3 or 4 minutes of dealing with this problem. So you have 2 windows that don't work. What often happens in these kind of situations is you've had one not work for a while, and then like the important one, the driver's one, stops working, and now you're paying attention to both. That may or may not be what happened, but I've found that to be the case a lot because the odds of 2 components on opposite sides of the car failing at the exact same time is very, very low, but you know what, it's possible. It sounds like you covered it all, right? Key in the door, roll the windows up and down. Rolling them up and down from both buttons, the master switch on the driver's door, as well as the switch on the passenger door. My next step would probably be to hook the scan tool up and try and output test them. That's where we go in and we tell the computer, hey, roll the windows down, and it forces it to roll down. But the fact that you're hearing something happening inside the door makes me think that your switch is good, your wiring is good, and at least the command side and the intake side of the module is probably good. My next step would probably be to remove the door panel and plug the switch back in. And while I was operating the switch, I'd be tapping on the motor with something like a screwdriver. You don't need a 2.5-pound sledgehammer, just enough to kind of rattle it loose. Maybe there's some corrosion inside the motor. Maybe one of the gears is stripped out or something like that. Oftentimes inside those motor assemblies, it's just plastic gears, and 12 years of functioning a window could very easily cause some stripped teeth or perhaps just some corrosion inside the motor, causing it not to work properly. If you're holding that button down and you start tapping on the motor with a screwdriver or up or down, whatever, and it starts working, you got something inside that motor that's failing. I would start with the driver's side because to me that's the more important window. If that worked, I would move to the passenger side. If that didn't work, I'd probably move to the passenger side anyway because you might have an issue with the module or the motor being okay on the driver's side but not on the passenger side. If none of that works, you're kind of in a dilly of a pickle, man. I might take the motor off and try and move the window up and down. Maybe the cables are seized and it's not functioning because it's too high resistance for that motor to overcome. That's not one I've seen a whole lot on that generation Jetta, but I have seen a handful of motors fail or modules fail. It's all one unit on that car. So start there, man. Get that door panel off, switch up and down, messing around with it, and wrapping on the motor part, the metal part, with a screwdriver or something light where you can just get some good taps on it and see if that takes care of it. Next one up is from Grant. His 14 Passat was sideswiped. Oh, dude, sorry to hear that. Thanks, Charles. Love your work. My 2014 1.8 Turbo SE Sport that I love very much as my first grown-up vehicle got sideswiped. Driver's side mirror, tire, fender, all smushed inward. I think that my alignment is still good. Anything I should keep an eye out for? I'm already having the auto body send me to the VW dealership for a full inspection and alignment, then back to the body shop where the insurance will do its magic. Thanks for any tips. Cheers, Grant. Okay, Grant, First of all, it sucks, dude. Really sorry that your car got sideswiped. Super bummer. Hope your insurance takes care of all of it. This is a pretty straightforward repair, right? And as long as like our B-pillar structure or our A-pillar structure is not damaged, it's going to be mostly cosmetic. I mean, I wouldn't want to drive around with my driver's door smashed in, so they'll probably end up doing something like putting a new door on, putting a new fender on. So here's the things that concern me. With a new door, make sure that they put the sound dampener inside the door. When you get your car back, you shut the door and it sounds like it's hollow, go around and open the passenger side and shut it and make sure they sound the same. I've seen a lot of body shops that do doors and don't put any sound deadening material in it, especially when they use aftermarket doors. The factory ones I think come with it on there, but if they're using an aftermarket door, which I hate that idea, I want factory parts back on my car, it doesn't have that sound deadening material in it. It sounds distinctly hollow when you shut the door. When you get the car back, make sure that your door lines up. So look at the gap around the front of the door to the fender, the back of the door to the back door. Compare that to the other side. It's nice that it's only one side, so you can use the passenger side to look at that gapping on the driver's side. Of course, make sure everything works, and you need to do that right away. The second you get, in fact, before you leave, make sure everything in the driver's door works, the mirror works, and the windows, the locks, all the stuff that's controlled inside that door, back door too, if it's got some damage. Make sure everything works fine. Check your lighting in the front side to make sure that it all works correctly. Then what you're gonna need to do is drive the car. And if your tire looks different at all, if it looks like it might be twisted in or the top might be pushed in, your alignment is not right, you probably have bent suspension components and you need to get that addressed. Oftentimes it's really easy to see the bent components just visually, and then if they put it on the alignment rack, it's a dead giveaway that you have a component bent out of whack. If there's any damage to the tire, make sure they put a new tire on it. If there's any damage to the wheel, make sure they put a wheel on it. Make sure they're using all factory parts. You didn't have any counterfeit parts on your car before someone sideswiped it. You should not have them after someone sideswipes it. And finally, it's not a bad idea, once the vehicle is complete, take it back to the VW dealership and have them look over the car and make sure they don't see anything else that the body shop missed. Like all of us, the folks that work at body shops are human. In addition to that, they're dealing with insurance companies that may not want to pay for all the repairs right away. So get it re-inspected after the work is completely done and make sure that it's all up to speed. Also remember that you should be getting some sort of diminished value back. So depending on how much damage there was to the car, there's certain thresholds where you have to say, hey, my car's had this much more damage. And if you do that, the value of your car does drop. So talk to the insurance company and push them pretty hard on it about getting a diminished value check for your vehicle. It's something I've had to do a handful of times. Your vehicle is worth less now because it has had paint work and someone hit a parked car. Or maybe not. Maybe they weren't parked. Maybe you weren't parked. But you should be getting that diminished value. That varies state by state, so I can't promise you, but it's a question you need to ask the insurance company to see if you can get some money back on it. Put that in your pocket, save it for a rainy day, or for when you maybe have to trade the car in. So good luck, man. I hope they do a great job on your car, and don't expect your car back anytime soon. A lot of times things like this do take quite some time. All right, next up, I got a brand new 2018 Tiguan, 4 days old, 100 miles, and I noticed the following issues. When accelerating uphill, slight incline, from a standstill, or reversing up or down a hill, with the steering wheel turned, not necessarily full turn, I hear one single pop coming from each of the front wheels. To be more accurate, when the steering wheel is turned to the right, for example, and I accelerate from a standstill, I hear a single pop from the left front wheel, followed by another pop from the right wheel. The noise reminds me of the sound of fingers cracking or your neck or back joints. Boy, do I know that sound well. Should I be concerned? Is this an indication of something wrong with the joint, suspension, steering that needs to be checked? Thanks, and keep up the great, valuable videos coming. All right, good question. Definitely something you want to get looked at. When you take this, we're going to talk about what I think it might be in a minute, but first of all, you need to take this in and get it looked at. The car's 100 miles, 4 days old, still well under warranty, because your warranty is pretty much forever on that Tiguan. So take it in and get it fixed. And what you want to do is you want to ride with the technician. You want to show them what the car is doing and what it takes to get it to do it. Oftentimes with concerns like this, the hardest part is finding a way to duplicate it consistently. If I have a car and with 100 times I try and duplicate a suspension noise, it does it once. That doesn't really do me any good unless I just happen to get lucky and find the problem. We really need to be able to duplicate this multiple times over and over again. Oftentimes a second technician here is truly, truly the best course of action. So make sure that you ride with that technician when you bring the car in. What do I think it is? You know, there's a ton of things that it could be, right? The last generation Tiguan did have an issue with the axles popping. This wasn't a turning issue. This was a straight, if you came to kind of an abrupt stop and then kind of gave it an abrupt go, the axles would pop inside the knuckle. It was really weird, inside the wheel bearing, I guess, more accurately. It's kind of a weird noise. We ended up putting this Loctite-like stuff on the splines of the axle. It worked. I just worry about what it was going to take to get the axle out the next go around, but it did definitely work. So oftentimes this could be maybe the shock absorber in the knuckle getting in a bind, either left side, right side, both. It could be the axle getting in a bind. I doubt it's anything steering related. It's just taking you turning the wheel in order to make it happen. We want to look at our strut towers. That's another, the bearings and the bushings on top of the struts. It's another really common VW place to have an issue. And finally, the ball joint at the lower part of the suspension. All places where I think you really could be having this noise from. And this noise could be maybe something's not torqued properly. Maybe it was torqued with the car up off the ground when it should have been down on the ground. There's any number of things that it really could be. But first and foremost, I wouldn't worry a ton about it, okay? I wouldn't worry, like I wouldn't have the car towed. I wouldn't worry my family's in danger, especially if nothing else is weird about the suspension. But I would take it in as soon as you possibly can because you want to get that documentation trail started and you want your car fixed, right? They're going to open up a ticket and call Techline, I'm assuming. My guess is Techline's going to have them replace a couple of parts. Another thing that we would do often on, this was a real big Mark IV problem. What we would do is we would just get a car off the lot. Yes, I worked at the dealership when the Mark IVs were still brand new on the lot. We'd get a car off the lot and we would take the whole entire shock absorber assembly, knuckle, lower ball joint. We'd take it all off of a brand new car and put it on the customer's car. And almost every single time that covered the noise, right? Swap all the parts till you figure it out. That would take care of the noise, and then we would kind of work backwards from there on determining which part we actually wanted to replace. So take it in, get it looked at, don't worry a ton about it, but the most important thing here I think is really to ride with the technician, show them how to duplicate that noise. That's going to make your life a lot easier, it's going to make their life a ton easier. You're going to get your car back fixed faster, and you're probably going to be more likely to get it fixed the first time rather than having to take it back a ton of times to get that noise handled. All right, last one of the day comes from Sean. Hey, Charles, I love your channel. I think it's awesome what you do, and you managed to get out of the dealer world. Thanks, dude. Appreciate that. I'm not sure if you're going to respond, but I need some advice. I have a 01 Cabrio, 2-liter non-turbo, of course. I get severe misfires when it runs first thing and stalling when trying to accelerate when it's cold. I've taken it everywhere, and they can't seem to find a place to start with diag. It's got brand new VW plugs, coil, cap, rotor, and a new fuel filter. I really need your help on this one. It's my brother's car, and he needs it to drive. Please let me know if there's common issues. I would appreciate it. I'm willing to pay you for advice and help. Thanks, Charles. Sean. All right, Sean, I appreciate all that. Let's see if we can't walk out some of the things that might be going on this Cabrio. This is tough because it's a really old car, right? 01 is like 94 technology. So we're going way, way back 25 years or so ago in the VW world. You replaced a lot of the places that I would have started to: coil, plugs, cap, rotor, and all that. So good on you. The next thing we want to do is we want to look at things like throttle body. Usually you get a fault for it, but you didn't mention anything about faults, no faults. So get the faults checked and see if there's any stored. I would probably at this point be looking at a ground issue because it seems to change, at least based on what you said, it seems to change with temperature. The warmer the car is, I'm guessing the better it behaves. So I would be looking at the engine ground, the ground for the battery, all the grounds under the hood. I'd be looking at that. ECM ground is another one that I'd really want to take a close look at to see what it looks like. Then while I was doing that, I would just go ahead and clean it and put it back on anyway. If you have a multimeter, you can do volt drop tests on the ground circuits, but the hard part of those is getting to them. So once you get to them, just go ahead and clean them, do a very thorough inspection, and see what that gets you. The other thing I'm kind of thinking is your injectors may be clogged. I have ran into this a couple of times, not very often, where clogged injectors due to really poor quality fuel would make the car run really, really weird. And it's always been a version of this 2-liter, maybe not this 2-liter ABA, but a version of this 2-liter. Another thing I want to look at is the connection for the oxygen sensors, whether you have a fault or not. If you look where the intake boot comes into the throttle body and look just behind and then about a foot down, you'll see 2 connectors, a black and a brown, in a bracket, hopefully anyway. Take a look at that wiring and make sure that one of the wires hasn't broken. That'll almost always set a fault, but it may not, and that can make your car run weird too. The other thing is, make sure your check engine light's coming on. You may not see a check engine light, but it may be because the bulb has burned out. Yes, I have seen that on that generation car. So when you turn the key on and don't start the car, your check engine lights should self-test. If you don't see it come on, you either have an ECM problem or you have a bulb out. So you need to get the fault scanned and see what's going on with it fault-wise. If the faults don't get you anywhere, let's move back to fuel. Maybe run some fuel injector cleaner like 44K from BG. That stuff works pretty well. You can try Seafoam too. That seems to work pretty good too. Maybe you just got some junk built up in that fuel rail. Check your vacuum lines, make sure the fuel rail or the fuel pressure regulator vacuum line is still attached. Look at the PCV. We need to do a full inspection under the hood. Make sure we don't have any broken nonsense or anything like that. The brake booster vacuum line, you want to make sure that's intact as well. So this is a tough one, and one, you may stumble across, hey, it's bad fuel. This has been going on a long time, multiple tanks of fuel. It's probably not fuel related, but it's worth having the conversation for. Engine grounds is another one that I'd focus really, really hard on right away, and then you're going to have to kind of go from there. But what I would do, if you don't get anywhere with those couple things, take it to a VW Audi specialty shop that works on older VWs and have them start there. There's probably a lot of guys at these independent shops that have worked on many, many ABAs or the older Cabrios, Mark III generation. At the dealership, you're probably not going to find that in all dealerships. Many of them might have one dude that worked on this generation. I was always the Cabrio dude, so I was pretty familiar with them, but it's been a while since I've worked on one consistently. So find someone that can work on that car, probably leaning on a VW-specific independent shop, and they'll probably be able to find the problem pretty darn easy. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Questions, comments, you know what to do. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up button. Always appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting platform if you like the audio-only version. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, Snapchat. All right, guys, thanks for watching or listening, and I will see you next time.